You can't see what those are. Ha 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 ha. Good morning, it's Karen, and finally, a book haul. I am very specific about how I acquire books. I generally like to take my books out of the library. If I absolutely love it, I will buy myself my own copy. And then sometimes I get other books that I'm just like, I have to own this. There's something calling to me about it. So you won't get a whole lot of book hauls here, but you will get a couple here and there. I am going to order this from most anticipated to least anticipated. My most anticipated book of the entire year, and that is Little Fortified Stories. Disclaimer, the author, Barbara Black, is my aunt. However, I'm a very discerning reader. I'd like to think I am. And I have read her first book. This one came out 2 years ago, Music from a Strange Planet. And it is weird, and it is wonderful, and it is touching. And yes, there are certain things that I can pick up on because I know her. But it is some of the most luscious, gorgeous writing that you have ever read. She is also a poet too, so you do get a lot of that with her writing. She also makes you do a little bit of work. She adds this wondrous element to everything, and she typically ends things or sort of dances around actually saying what is happening, and you have to fill in the blanks. And that is cool because each person is going to interpret things very differently. So her first book, this one I read 2 years ago. This one I am most excited for. Didn't realize this until I started opening up. It's flash fiction, which is even cooler. So, like, this is a story right here, and this is a story right here. And she has also included some of her collage artwork. Now, the cover she made herself. She does these collages, and on Instagram, I'll put her handle here. She does poetry along with her collages. So she's included some in here. And each section is based off of a different alcohol. And I think they're just capturing the moment of that flavor, that taste. So I've started it, and she's started with port or fortified wine. So this is my most anticipated read of the year. I've already started it. I could not. It wasn't even on my TBR, and I just went, you know what? I have to start this. So starting out strong, my most anticipated read. If you watched my videos at the beginning of the year, I am on a classic science fiction bent. And I have a bucket list, and I wrote it up years ago, and I went through the SF Masterworks by Glance, and this was one that popped up that I thought, that sounds so fascinating. So this is The God Whale by TJ Bass. And this is about a cyborg, part organic whale, part mechanized ship, and part God. What? Okay. I'm really enjoying reading whale books too. After reading Moby Dick, for some reason, I'm just like, I gotta read all the whale things. So at the beginning of this year, I read Whale Fall, which is more survivalist. This is whale science fiction. And already, I think I read the first little bit, and it just already reads quite wild. So I am looking forward to this one. I'm going to say that for most of them, but this one especially I'd like to get read this year. Speaking of books that call to you, but also when you watch somebody else's vlog and they just sell you on something. So I watched Gavin's vlog about this book. He went to Whitby Castle, I think, where it was inspired by. This is Bram Stoker's Dracula. I love epistolary novels. Didn't realize this was epistolary. So if for those of you who don't know, it's letters back and forth. And there's something really lovely about reading letters. I love to throw in some classics. I want to get through as many as I can. I read Frankenstein last year and loved it. So I think this one's going to be perfect for October. No. Okay, I am also on a monk fascination right now. Monks, whales. 2 years ago, what did I read? It was called We Shall Sing a Song into the Deep. And it was about monks on a submarine. And that one was like incredible. Want to get back into, I was going to say the monk genre. I don't even know what that is. This is A Canticle for Leibowitz. This one was also on my bucket list. This is, I think, monkish. I think religious. I'm not actually sure. I started reading it. It's like post-apocalyptic and people are worshiping in certain ways. In the depths of the Utah desert, long after the flame deluge has scoured the earth clean, a monk of the Order of St. Leibowitz has made a miraculous discovery. Holy relics from the life of the great saint himself, including the Blessed Blueprint, the sacred shopping list, and the hallowed shrine of the Fallout Shelter. I don't know. It's all of the things that I love this medieval, but like post-apocalyptic. And I'm also loving post-apocalyptic. So this one should be a wild one. I think, where did I read it? Yes, a classic bestseller and a landmark of the 20th century literature. Like, this is one that I have heard of my entire life, and I want to know what it's all about. Okay, let's keep going on the monk genre. This one I actually pulled for my July TBR. This is A Plague on Both Your Houses. This one is medieval. Physician Matthew Bartholomew, he's a teacher of medicine at the fledgling University of Cambridge, and then somebody gets murdered and he has to investigate, but for some reason nobody else wants to investigate. So mysterious. I am totally into the idea of medieval mystery. I've got The Name of the Rose lined up. I want to read that one ASAP, but I pulled this one, so I guess I'm going to be reading this one first. All of the ones that are left are ones that I've actually read before, so I wouldn't say I'm excited for them, but I'm excited to own them. This is Green Rider. This is the first book of the Green Rider series. This is kind of a funny story. So I lent my beautiful paperback copy to someone and I didn't get it back. And this is one of my most favorite books ever. This is one of my most favorite series ever. It is ongoing, but it's like, this one was published in 2000. The last one came out last year. So we're on book number 8. But this one is really cool. I loved the premise when I first read it, and I remember looking up, if you want strong female character fantasy, and this one kept coming up. I think the biggest criticism people say, oh, it's derivative, oh, it's so like Lord of the Rings, but it's like most fantasy is kind of inspired by Lord of the Rings, so I don't care. It doesn't bother me. Like, yeah, there's elves in the woods. Whatever. How many other books have you read where there's elves in the woods? Like, come on. She's at this school. She does a bad thing. She runs away. She doesn't want to get in trouble. She encounters this postal service worker, and he's injured, and he says, you need to take this message to the king. So she takes it to the king, and then basically just gets hired as a Green Rider. And the Green Riders are the postal service for the king. They're messengers, and they deliver things back and forth between different dukedoms and countries. I love Kristen Britton's writing. She's able to capture nature in such a way that it makes you feel like you are outside traveling with the riders. I love it so much. Would highly recommend, if you're looking for a new fantasy series to binge, go for it. Hot take. I don't know if it's a hot take. I think a lot of people would agree with me. I love the first 4 books. 5th book, I pretend didn't happen, and then 6, 7, 8 are fine. I don't even own that one because I hated it so much. But these ones, these are great. This one I've read at least 4 or 5 times, so I'm glad to own it in my library again. Okay, same person that I lent my favorite Green Rider to, I also lent Throne of Glass too. I had the original cover with the assassin and that beautiful buttery color purple. You can't get it anymore. I tried. I don't want to spend that much money on a first edition. So all of my books don't match, but that's okay. I'm not bitter. I'm not bitter. I just don't want to lend out books anymore. So Throne of Glass I read when it was first hyped up. 2012. I saw it on the Indigo website and I went, sure, I'll get it. The hottest new fantasy. And it was fun. It was so good. This, I remember people had a hard time defining because it was like, oh, it's fantasy, but it's not really romance, but it's not really this, and it's not really that, and it's kind of this. It was a lot of things. I remember thinking, I really enjoyed that there was a mystery aspect. I enjoyed that there was a competition. I enjoyed that there was a hint of a romance, but not really. And I just really liked the main character and the way that Sarah J. Maas liked to blend the idea of you can be girly girl, but also you can be badass. Tamora Pierce books, like those were heavy inspiration for these, 100%. So this is my replacement copy. I kind of want to reread it now, but I'm still mad that it's not my original. But that's okay. That's okay. I don't love the new covers, but that's okay. One of those books that just sticks with you. I've only read it twice now, and this was another replacement book because I lent it to somebody and it didn't come back, and that's The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern. I adore the poetry of this book. Having read it a second time, I understand people's critique of the idea that nothing really happens, but I don't think it's one of those books where things happen. It's one of those books where things happen, but it's more important that you get the atmosphere. And that's something that Erin Morgenstern does really, really well. She makes these characters that feel a little bit distant, but you're still interested in the world around them. And I absolutely adore that. There is one part in here that talks about a clockmaker, and my grandfather was a clockmaker. And I just remember rereading that passage over and over and over, and it encapsulates the whimsy, but the practicalness of a clockmaker. I am very happy to have this back in my possession. Drink break. Found this one. I have read this one already. This is called The Rune Lords. This has got one of those really interesting magic systems. I mentioned this one previously in talking about The Will of the Many, but The Will of the Many reminded me a lot of this one. I have since read the second book. I own the third one, but have not read that one yet. This is one of those wild setups, and I'm pretty sure this book takes place over 3 days. You just have to suspend your disbelief with that one. But the magic in this one is like you can gift virtues to other people. So, for example, if you want to gift your virtue of intelligence to someone, there's some sort of process where you give all of your intelligence. You kind of become a bumbling fool, but then that person becomes that much more intelligent. In this one, I think we're following mostly the king, and the king has been gifted, like, 100 people gave him their beauty, and 100 people gave him their intelligence, and 100 people gave them their charisma. And it's what ends up happening is he ends up looking after those people. He puts them in towers, and like if they can't look after themselves, he's got a series of people that look after them. And that if those people then pass away, he doesn't get their beauty or intelligence anymore. So what ends up happening, there's this guy who kind of like rises up, and he's like anti him, and he starts killing off the king's virtue givers. Anyway, it is a wild book. I think I read this in only a couple of days in the summertime, pre-kids. And I remember really, really loving this one. This was a perfect summer read. It kind of looks more fall, but it's not. And it's got that classic type of illustrated cover. Oh, there's like a ghost king anyway. So this one, I'm glad to have this one in my possession. I owned only book 2 and 3, and then I found this one at this local book swap, so yay! So those are all my new books that I've collected since January. Thank you so much for watching. My name is Karen. I'm the Book Libranaut. I read all types of books. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you again soon. Another book that I totally forgot about. Okay, well, a free little library. I just picked up this one, The Forgotten Garden. May have just picked it up because it had garden in the title. I have heard of this author before. I have not read anything of hers, but I'm pretty sure this is historical fiction. A tiny girl is abandoned on a ship headed for Australia. She arrives completely alone with nothing but a small suitcase. She's taken in by the dockmaster and his wife and raised, and on her 21st birthday, they tell her the truth. And this is set 1930s. So, I don't know, pick this one up because it was the most interesting one that was there, but